idea really was to try stuff that couldn't be accommodated in the conventional courses. That's really the purpose. And, you know, my colleagues around the table who really have done a wonderful job in putting this together.
Just to give you a little overview of the class, it is a little different than Casey's. Ours is sort of situated in the middle ground. It's called Skateboarding and Action Sports and Business, Media, and Culture. So it does have some like square spaces that we talk in, but we're using a new tool and a new lens for people to actually get excited about thinking about that. Basically, we use it as a case study for global youth culture, and we look at issues of race, class, and gender, social change, advocacy, public diplomacy, and also on the practical end, how businesses operate and what networks that they use in order to come to their conclusions. So just to give you a little background, I've been involved in skateboarding for a very long time, both as a photographer and a journalist for the skateboarding magazines. I'm also the chairman for a skateboarding NGO called Cuba Skate, and we bring boards back and forth to the kids in Cuba and look to increase the dialogue between youth in the U.S. and in Cuba. I also do research the skateboarding communities in Brazil, the Netherlands, Brazil, Netherlands, Barcelona, which I actually just got back from there a little while ago. And what it does is kind of puts me in a unique position to look at being part of the skate culture and then also part of academia, and then being able to do a good critical critique of both worlds, right? And so that's sort of the theory side, but then the practical application is, because I know all of these people who are the VPs, the CEOs of the company, the class brings them in, and they're the ones who are actually there who talk about their business, how they got started in it, and sort of what the problems and issues are.
2 or 3 examples.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, perfect.
Or next.
Okay, so for this semester, we had Don Brown come in. He's the VP of Soul Technologies, which is a multi-million-dollar transnational company. They've got offices everywhere. And he came and
What
basically,
do they do?
oh, and he's the VP of the skateboarding footwear manufacturer.
Okay.
So they were actually the first skateboarding sneaker ever made. And they started in France, and then they brought their operations over here, and they have offices everywhere. So they get to see him, but they also got to see the editor of Tony Hawk's Tony Hawk's Ride Channel. And so he came in as well, so they got to see sort of how media is created, what are the needs of the community, what are the needs for the business, and sort of get a 360-degree view. Now, we also had one of the first female pro skaters, X Games gold medalist, came into the class as well, Vanessa Torres. So we got to see her. We also got to see a former Trojan, Amelia Brodka, who actually runs an event called Exposure, and their whole purpose is to increase the amount of women who are involved in skateboarding. So what happens is the class actually gets this sort of 360-degree view of the ecosystem. Actually, Fred Van Schie came, and he's actually sort of the social media guru in the action sports and skateboarding media as well. So their midterm, just to give you an overview, is their midterm was how do we increase the amount of women that are participating in skateboarding and action sports? So this is something that the entire industry is trying to figure out. All these CEOs, all these VPs are just, how do we do this? What are we going to do? The Olympics, the skateboarding has an Olympic bid in 2020, and we're being fast-tracked for that. So one of the things with the Olympics is you have to have gender equity, right? So here's an industry that doesn't traditionally have gender equity. Women aren't pushed away, but they aren't necessarily being brought in. But it's a community that's a global transnational community, and that actually part of the ethos is to make change and to do new things. So bringing women is not, no one's against it, they're just not sure how to do it. So for their midterm, what they did was actually construct a way to increase the amount of women and their awareness of bringing women into action sports. Now, what they had different than everyone else was that they were able to actually see the entire system. They saw CEOs of companies, they saw what the media content that needs to be for the Ride Channel, they got to see what the pro skaters actually needed. All these female pros have been pros for some of them over a decade, and they still have the same problems they had when I showed them a contest in 2001 as the contest we did a critique of that was 3 weeks ago. So what happened is, I got some of the students are here, but I got amazing responses and amazing answers to these problems. And all of the CEOs, all these people are calling me and saying, hey, can we meet with them again? What can we do? Because we want to solve this problem, and you've got the right students. And so I know the whole concept of third space was to get us to sort of think outside the box. And what happens with these students is they're seeing the boxes, and they're able to see how they're connected and what they can do to satisfy everybody's needs. You talk about empathy a lot, right? Like that's the main thing, is understanding. I think one of the key things we talk about is understanding where people are at when you meet them. And I have my master's in public diplomacy from some of my teachers here as well. And so that's one of the things that we learn. So when you're looking at an organization that wants to make change but doesn't know how to make change, the first thing you have to do is understand that they would like to do a good job generally. Whoops, sorry. They'd like to do a good job. And if that's the case, then you don't have to be so, you're doing things wrong, you're not including women, this is what's, instead, you're understanding where they are, where their needs are, and how you can help. And so I think that's created a really good space in the class for them to be able to problem solve. And I think everything that they're learning there can be applied to any issue. I think that the main thing of the class is to look at critical study, critical study, and actually be involved and think of like, how do we get these things done? And how do we look at the entire system and say, okay, here's your issue, here's what your needs are, here's what your needs are, and we're gonna step back and bring everyone together, and this is how it's gonna solve everyone's needs so everyone can save face and everyone can feel good about it. So.
Those of you who are in Neftalie's class, could you identify yourself?
If you could design your own, curriculum, and there would be one course that you'd say, hey, this would be really, really cool, what would you think about doing?
Well, I feel like I'm taking it already right now with Neftalie's class, just because I'm the
Good,
president.
This group, I say, they've learned a lot from.
Have you given out the grades yet?
I had some great midterms.
Well, I am the president of the USC Skateboarding Club, so I think that's why it comes so naturally to like the class. However, I do have a great interest in, I know that there was a class in it recently, but it was an ITP class in sports analytics, specifically with baseball or any type of sport with where statistics can be an advantage in the ability to win. So I think that's a cool course, and I'd like to see possibly some type of integration with the communications department. That'd be cool. What about you?
I'm kind of at a spot in my academic career where Neftalie's class really provided a breath of fresh air from the perspective that it's what I probably epitomized college academics would be like before actually becoming a college student, in that talking about it in the respect that I don't feel the pressure to necessarily perform so much as I feel the pressure to think and actually consider everything. And that's honestly the class that I would dream up. So it's a different approach to considering these things, and it's a different perspective. I'm personally not in any way connected to skateboarding. I'm sports media, so that was my outside link to it, but it's been an opportunity to consider a wildly different range of spaces that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to outside of maybe a dinner table conversation. Mm-hmm. And with the diverse group of students across 7 or 8 different majors, I think. I know Dimitri's in mechanical engineering, so I'm one of 2 or 3 comm students in the entire class, and it's a wildly different perspective across the entire table. And in that light, I think it's been more productive than any other class that I've taken in terms of shaping my views, not just on business and communication, but on kind of the world and issues at large. So I think that's just kind of something that it's not offered regularly in most classes that I would not have had the opportunity to engage in without Neftalie's class and Annenberg X as a whole.